Welcome back to the Double Feature, the series where I play 2 random games in a single video. Today's video has no theme, because none of the games I'm going to be showing off today have anything to do with each other whatsoever. There you go, that's the intro. Let's get to covering the games now. Alright, so the first game that we have in the docket here is called Low Mem Sky. So this game, as its title probably implies, is an 8-bit demake of No Man's Sky. And there's not really a great deal of things to say about it. It's basically No Man's Sky, but just recreated in the Pico 8 game engine. Now obviously there are some serious limitations to what you can actually make in the Pico 8 engine, and I have covered some games made with this game engine in the past. But Pico 8 is basically a game engine that was designed specifically for making 8-bit games. As such, you are working under very strict limitations. And when you're trying to recreate a game as huge as No Man's Sky, well, there's only so much you can accomplish. But Low Mem Sky is a very interesting attempt at trying to recreate No Man's Sky in a very limited amount of memory. It was originally uploaded to itch.io back in 2018, and it was developed for a game jam, specifically the so-called Demake jam. And the premise of the Demake jam was to basically create a demake of a very iconic video game. According to information I could gather from itch itself, because itch.io was the website where the Demake jam was being hosted, but it doesn't seem like it was a very popular game jam because there were only about 69 entries. But out of the entries that were submitted, Low Mem Sky in particular placed in 3rd. So it was actually one of the highest rated entries in that specific game jam. And this game does have a pretty high average rating on itch itself. It was updated a couple of times ever since it was submitted to the Demake Jam a couple of years ago. I think the most recent update for Low Mem Sky came out earlier this year. And this relatively new update that came out earlier this year added a whole bunch of new features, like for instance, the ability to dock with space stations, which you can also do in No Man's Sky, and a bunch of other neat little features as well. But instead of talking about those mechanics, I'm gonna show you them. So I am gonna unpause the game here, so this is the title screen, Low Mem Sky. If I didn't pause the game, then it would have automatically loaded up a planet. Yeah, so inspired by No Man's Sky by Hello Games, and it's kinda similar to the, wait, actually maybe it doesn't. I don't know, for whatever reason, I thought that if you just left it here on the title screen, it would automatically load up a planet, but I guess it doesn't. Okay, whatever, that's not important right now. So, it is kind of similar to the loading screen from No Man's Sky, where you can see the names of some of the star systems and also some of the planets that you can encounter in the game. Much like No Man's Sky, all of the planets that you can land on in Low Mem Sky are procedurally generated. Oh yeah, see, it actually just loads up the planet automatically. Yeah, it says press X to start, but if you just leave the title screen alone for a little while, eventually it'll just start the game automatically. But yes, much like No Man's Sky, all of the planets here are procedurally generated, and you can land on every single planet that you come across. According to the game's developer, there are roughly 180 billion planets, or somewhere along that amount, that you can land on in this game, which is not as much as No Man's Sky, because No Man's Sky I think has like 18 quintillion planets or something like that. I don't know, it's an extremely large number of planets that might as well be infinite. So let's actually try and explore one of these planets here. So the planet that we landed on, or I guess that it spawned us on, is called Enveni 4? Or maybe it's Envemi 4. I don't know. At least 2 of the letters in that name look almost identical to one another, despite the fact that I think the second to last letter is actually supposed to be an M, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so every time you start a new game, it'll just start you off on a brand new planet, which is not unlike No Man's Sky here, so the landscape here is randomly generated. Everything is made out of very tiny sprites, which I guess they pretty much have to be, because again, Pico 8 game engine is pretty limited in what it can actually do, or I guess like the kinds of scenes that it can render. So we can pick up this cactus flesh right here. So much like No Man's Sky, you are going around and trying to grab resources, but you are a lot more limited in what you're allowed to do in this game than in No Man's Sky. Because for instance, whenever you pick up an item, it will automatically be added to your starship's cargo, and this is your starship right here, by the way, this little red sprite. Usually in No Man's Sky, you have separate inventories for your starship and also your player character, like your exosuit. Unfortunately, you don't have separate inventories for that in this game. The only inventory you have is your starships. What's also a bit of a bummer is that you cannot open up your inventory at any point in this game. The only real time that you can view your inventory is when you are docked at a space station. Now, if we walk around here for a little bit, you'll also notice that there are some animals that are roaming around the place here. In this case, we have some birds that are just kind of flying around. They do cast little shadows on the ground, indicating that they are actually, you know, flying, which is really nice. I like that little attention to detail. Typically in No Man's Sky, you will encounter all sorts of procedurally generated alien life, and some of them will be aviary, while others will be bipedal creatures that just roam around on the ground. Some of them can only swim in water as well. There's a lot of different animal types that you can encounter in Low Mem Sky as well, but the way in which Low Mem Sky generates all of the animals in this game is nowhere near as complex as it is in No Man's Sky, because I have played this game for quite a bit off screen, and one thing I noticed is that sometimes the game will use the exact same sprites for the same kind of animal, but oftentimes that sprite will be a different color in order to differentiate it from other animals in the environment. So oftentimes it will just like straight up reuse sprites, but the color palette of the sprites will be a little different. But still, it's a very nice attention to detail, and I'm at least glad that it doesn't reuse the same colors over and over. There is water here as well that you can encounter, much like in No Man's Sky. The water doesn't really have any effect on your character though, although you can go for a swim in it, and as I mentioned before, sometimes you can find some alien fish in this water as well, much like in No Man's Sky. I also like how it leaves behind little splashes of water whenever you're moving around in it too, like these little gray pixels that it leaves behind. Like it leaves behind little ripples in the water, and I really like that. The water can also appear in different colors. This is just like very standard looking water right here because it's blue. But the watercolors can get a lot weirder, and hopefully I can encounter some other planets later on that have much more, I guess, exotic-looking water, if that's even the correct term. So it is possible to sprint in this game, and if you hold down either the Z key, the C key, or the N key, because all of them work apparently, you will be able to sprint. And you do have infinite sprint in this game, which is unlike No Man's Sky actually, because typically in No Man's Sky you have limited sprint. You know, you're not able to just run around forever like you're running a marathon or something. So it does kind of seem like this game is just locked in creative mode at all times, because unfortunately, there's not really all that much you can interact with in this game. Like for instance, you cannot actually interact with any of the animals, because typically, in No Man's Sky, you can feed the animals different items in order to tame them. You can't do that in Low Mem Sky here. Also, these little robots that are floating around here, those are sentinels. And typically, sentinels are very hostile. Well, I mean, they're usually neutral in No Man's Sky, but if provoked, they will begin to attack the player. But these sentinels do not do anything in this game. They just kind of roam around, minding their own business, and there's no way to attack them yourself. You don't have any weapons in this game. The only real thing you can do here is just sort of roam around aimlessly, which I guess is not unlike No Man's Sky now that I think about it. By the way, I was able to find one of the water dwellers here. So this is a little animal right here that's just swimming around, basically like a fish creature. I'm a little disturbed at the fact that it's completely flesh-colored, but it's probably okay. It's just out here trying to live its own life, trying to live its life in peace. So we're just gonna leave it alone for now. I cannot pick up any other items right now because my cargo is full. So if you are fed up with your own starship, you will be able to purchase some other starship types later on. And usually the game will start you off with about $10,000, which is actually enough money to purchase a different starship. Keep in mind though that there are not that many starship types in Low Mem Sky. I think there's only like 4 or 5. These little items right here, by the way, are war-up cells. These are important for war-upping to different star systems. The only way that you can war-up to different star systems is by acquiring war-up cells. And the further away the star system is, the more war-up cells it will require in order for you to jump all the way to that star system. You may also notice that it does show you the ambient temperature of the planet that you are exploring. So this planet has a temperature of 15.2 degrees Fahrenheit, which is actually below the freezing point, because if I'm not mistaken, I think that's closer to like, what, minus 10 degrees Celsius, or maybe even colder than that? Yeah, and somehow liquid water can still exist on this planet. Something atmospheric pressure, I think that's what it pertains to. You know, different atmospheric pressure, therefore different, like, freezing point for water, or liquids, or something along the lines of that. I don't know, it's about as weird as No Man's Sky, because I mean, I've encountered planets in No Man's Sky that have liquid water, despite the ambient temperature being like minus 50. I'm pretty sure there is some actual science to back that up though. I'm pretty sure it's got something to do with atmospheric pressure. So I'm gonna be honest, this planet is kinda boring, so I would like to just leave it entirely right now. So, much like what you can do in creative mode in No Man's Sky, you can call your ship at any time, and your ship will spawn pretty close by to you. And if you want to just leave the planet entirely, you can press the X key to take off, and you leave the planet immediately. Yeah, something that I don't really like about this game is the fact that you can't just fly your ship around the surface of the planet like you can do in No Man's Sky. As soon as you get into your starship, you just leave the planet entirely. Not really sure how I feel about that mechanic. I don't think I really like it all that much, honestly. I would prefer to just, like, stay on the planet so that maybe I can, like, I can navigate the planet a lot more quickly, like if there's a specific destination on the planet that I wish to get to, but, yeah, the game doesn't allow you to do that. I'm gonna assume the reason for that is probably memory limitations. It would make sense, because I mean, this is Pico 8 we're talking about. So what are the controls for flying your starship around in space here? Well, they're not all that complicated. You use the arrow keys to steer your ship. I think you can only use the left and right arrow keys because you can't move up or down. You can only move in two-dimensional space in this game. If you want a boost, though, you can press and hold down the Z key, and there you go, you'll get a nice big speed boost. And different starships will have different top speeds, because there are some starships you can acquire later on, which have a much higher top speed when boosting. This is a space station right here, so we can press X to dock. So this is the resources market, and this is where we can sell off some of our junk that we're just hoarding and don't actually need, which I think is what I'm gonna do right now. We can sell each individual unit of cactus flesh for $27, and the resources market will be different for each individual star system, like you will be able to receive different amounts of money for selling items in different star systems. So this does not stay the same every single time. Some star systems you'll be able to receive more money for selling items, and other star systems they'll be less valuable. Same thing with these war-up cells right here. We can sell these for quite a bit of money, but I would rather hold on to them for now, because we're gonna use those to war up to other star systems later on. So, if I pick up this hauler right here, which I can do right now because I have the sufficient funds for it, and sure, why not, get the gold paint too. Yeah, you do have different paint schemes for your ship as well, but not that many of them, you only have 4. But yeah, you have 5 different starships that you can choose from. You have the shuttle, which is your default. You also have Explorer, Fighter, Hauler, and Exotic. I've only messed around with the Exotic and Hauler starships off screen. I'm not entirely sure what Explorer and Fighter do exactly, but we could test them out off screen later on. I do want to show you what exactly the Hauler looks like. So, this Hauler ship will allow us to store more junk in our cargo, because as you can see, we now have 50 inventory slots available, which is definitely a step up from the 20 that we had earlier. And this ship is also a little bit faster when boosting. This has a top speed of about 113 units per second, whereas the normal starship only has a top speed of 104. The color of these space stations is also random every single time, despite the fact that they all function in the exact same manner. There is a little mini-map at the top center of the screen showing you where you are in space, Shows you all the planets on the radar as well, and also the space station. There's a little field of asteroids that's usually orbiting around these planets, so when you see a field of asteroids, that usually means you're very close to another planet. So we haven't actually mapped this planet out, so we can land by pressing the X key, and oh, nice, this is a very good looking color to look at. Oh, a really nice looking landscape to look at. This is, what is this? Enula 4? And the temperature is 155 degrees Fahrenheit, which makes me wonder how exactly the trees are not, like, on fire right now. I do need to mention that this ambient temperature thing does not change at any point. Usually, it'll change dynamically, like in No Man's Sky. Whenever the sun begins to set on the planet and nighttime starts to approach, usually the temperature will drop. And then when the sun starts rising again, usually the temperature starts increasing again. And also, whenever you enter a body of water, the temperature decreases drastically as well. Unfortunately, the ambient temperature in this game is just there for visual purposes. It doesn't actually affect your character whatsoever. Now, that wouldn't be the case if you were playing No Man's Sky, because typically in high temperatures like this, it would cause your player character to take damage gradually over time. This would usually be one of those cases where you have to take shelter in order to avoid getting killed. But because this game is basically in creative mode at all times, you don't really need to worry about that at all. Yeah, see how I go into a body of water and the temperature doesn't drop like it normally would? Yeah, so it's just there for visual purposes. It's basically just a number that's there, but it doesn't actually mean a damn thing. See, these little animals right here, I can demonstrate to you how exactly you can interact with them, and, well, you can't interact with them at all. As you can see, they're not even solid, and there is no button to interact with them either. Like, you can't feed them anything. They're just there for visual purposes once again. But I still appreciate the attention to detail, though, because it makes the planets feel a lot more lively. Like, you have this animal right here that looks like a green shark with black stripes. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Looks about as weird as the animals typically do in No Man's Sky, so I mean, yeah. It still looks pretty cool, I would say, you know, at least for 8-bit standards. I don't know about you, but the character that you're playing as in Low Mem Sky, is it just me, or does he look kind of suspiciously like Gordon Freeman from Half-Life? Am I the only one who sees that? Like, it kind of looks like the same color palette, kind of looks like his suit. Plot twist, the protagonist of No Man's Sky was Gordon Freeman all along. Also, there's these little, like, I don't know if they're supposed to be, like, boulders or hills or whatever the heck, but you can just kinda, yeah, you can walk over them like they're not even there. Like, there really isn't a lot of things that you can interact with in this game. A bunch of fungal molds that we can pick up here. I don't think the entire list of items that you can come across in No Man's Sky is even featured in this game. There's only like a very small handful of items from No Man's Sky that made the cut in this game, as it were. Again, probably because of memory limitations, but I mean, I'm still pretty impressed by this. Like, the fact that the person who made this game was able to pretty accurately replicate the gameplay and procedural generation and mechanics and just the overall feel of No Man's Sky with a very limited game engine like Pico 8. I'm still very impressed by this, and you know what they say, limitations breed creativity. You know, they tried the best they could. Like, it's very obvious that they tried as hard as they could with this. Like, it's Pico 8, man, it doesn't allow you to do that much with it. But I think that's one of the things that makes Pico 8 so appealing to indie developers, like, because you're working in such strict limitations that it basically forces you to be creative. I also like how a lot of the animals are not just completely mindless either. As you can see, they're just walking along their own paths here. They basically have fully formed artificial intelligence. They usually just roam around on their own, which is pretty neat to look at least for a couple of minutes. I'm not even sure where these sentinels are coming from, cause you won't be able to find any bases here. I don't think there are any, like, bases or waypoints that you can find on any of these planets. I don't think that was implemented from No Man's Sky. Alright, well, there doesn't seem to be that much to see on this planet. Yeah, just a lot of, like, pink grass and very, like dark blue beaches. I don't know, not really the most visually appealing planet. I would like to try and find a planet with like a crazy watercolor, because the water on that planet also looked completely normal. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for eccentricity here, which is also pretty much what I do whenever I play No Man's Sky. I mean, part of the reason why I wanted to show this game off today was due to the fact that I have actually been starting to get into No Man's Sky again recently. Ever since the, I think it was called the Beyond update for No Man's Sky came out, I have been starting to play it again recently, which is part of why I wanted to show off Low Mem Sky. And not only that, but another reason why I wanted to demonstrate this game today is because I'm pretty sure I've played this game before. Like, not in a video, but on my own time. Because I think I had initially wanted to do a video on this at some point, but I just forgot about it. Yeah, no surprise there, by the way. That's literally what I said when I played No Stick Shooter yesterday. But when I found this game on Steam, I couldn't help but feel like I had played it before. It seemed very familiar to me. I was like, wait, was I gonna show this off in one of my randomizer videos, or maybe even one of my double feature videos at one point, and I just forgot about it like I normally do? But anyway, I'm still glad that I'm showing it off either way, because this is a really interesting demake. I like the concept at least. I don't feel like it's really all that playable though, or at least not playable in an exciting way. But still, it is a very noble attempt at trying to make an 8-bit version of No Man's Sky. And I mean, that was the entire point of the Demake Jam anyway, to try and basically create a low-fidelity version of an extremely popular video game. Okay, wow, yeah, this is very visually appealing right here. Yeah, we just have like a random blue worm floating in the air. Totally normal. Got some, oh god, like bright red colored trees against that bright yellow background, like this yellow surface right here that I guess kind of looks like sand to some degree. Oh god, this is actually very difficult to look at. Okay, give me some war-up cells at least. Yeah, got some birds flying around. I was able to find some green water somewhere. Yeah, look at this, we have green water here. I mean, not the craziest color that I've come across, even in this game, but yeah, you know, just showing you that the water can appear in different colors. And what's also very weird is that, yeah, the temperature is 22.7 degrees Fahrenheit, below the freezing level, and this just looks like a desert. I'm not entirely sure about that, honestly. Yeah, here's also like just a worm that's kind of crawling around in the desert. This one is actually bound to the earth, though, unlike the other one that was just kind of like gliding through the air. Yeah, some of these little creatures move a lot more slowly than others, but I assume that's because, yeah, they're basically, they're trying to like crawl their way, yeah, towards the little pond right here. Is he actually gonna go in the water? Okay, no, he actually just avoids the water altogether. Okay, well, it almost looks like he's shape-shifting, because he kind of looks like a car now. That's a really weird effect. I know it's supposed to simulate that he's going upwards, but I don't know, it almost looks like these sprites are kind of like mutating into something different. Kind of weird to look at. Yeah, see, even like cactus flesh right here. Got these cactuses out in the desert, despite the fact that everything should really be frozen here. That's kind of weird, man. Yeah, I also got the fighter ship, by the way. I don't know, I don't think the fighter doesn't even allow me to like blast anything, like blast these asteroids out of here. No, I don't think. Yeah, there's no blasters on this ship whatsoever, like not even any weapons on the starship itself. Okay, well, what is this explorer ship then? Like, what exactly is this? Because I haven't used this one at all. Okay, well, a little bit of a lower top speed, but I don't know, it kind of seems like, other than the fact that some ships boost a lot quicker than others, it kind of seems like, well, I mean, also the amount of cargo that they have as well, because this one has 25 instead of 20. But other than that, though, all of the differences between the starships seem to be almost entirely cosmetic. We can try messing around with this one for a little while, though. I mean, I might as well demonstrate how exactly warping works in this game, So you press the down arrow key in order to bring up the war up screen right here. And we are currently in the Phoebian system with 6 planets, and this is a Korvax system. So if you've never played No Man's Sky before, there are 3 different races that you can come across, well, I guess technically 4, throughout the course of gameplay. You have the Korvax, but you also have the Gek and the Viking. And I guess there is also the Atlas, but I don't think the Atlas counts as a separate race, or are they? I don't know, I'm not all that familiar with the lore of No Man's Sky because I don't really give too much of a rat's ass about the lore. I mean, whenever I choose to play No Man's Sky, I usually just play it in creative mode. Like, usually I'm just hopping around from planet to planet, just exploring the surface and hoping that I find something very weird and wacky. And because of that, I don't really pay too much attention to the actual story of No Man's Sky. I'm not entirely sure what the story even is. But anyway, there's a bunch of stars that we can jump to right here. So every star that you see on the screen, you can actually jump to. These are all different star systems that you can explore. If you want to get to all the star systems that are farther away from you, you will need more war-up cells. It also tells us that we are 17,000 light years from the galactic core. I think that's the entire point of No Man's Sky, though, trying to get to the galactic core, like the center of the galaxy, basically. Well, we're still pretty far away from it, and we're definitely not going to be able to accomplish that in this video. Yeah, 17,000 light years, I don't think so, Tim. So it'll also show you the amount of planets that all of these different star systems have. This one has 7, this is a Viking system. Grefane system has 8 planets, and this is operated by the Gek race. I think it's only possible for star systems to have up to 8 planets, and the least amount they can have is 2. Unfortunately, none of these star systems have any moons though, because typically there are planets in No Man's Sky that have moons orbiting them. That doesn't exist in this game, though. Some planets in No Man's Sky also have ring systems, but that's also non-existent in this game too, I don't think. Yeah, so the background is different. It's completely pitch black now. Okay, so we did just war up, and we did lose some of our war up cells from that. They are gone completely. Yeah, this green space station right here. Okay, yeah, we still have 7 war-up cells. I think we had like 13 before though, didn't we? Or like 11? Yeah, so we used up 4 war-up cells in order to jump all the way over here. And if we wanted to war up again, we literally could. Like if we wanted to war up to, I don't know, a fire system? Oh wait, no, this one only has 1 planet. Okay, I thought the maximum they could have was 2, or the minimum they could have was 2, I mean. Apparently not. Oh, this one also has 1 planet. Yeah, some of these stars are also colored differently, but I don't know if that actually means anything or not. Oftentimes, the appearance of these planets don't actually match what the surface looks like, but in this case it does, because, pink water? Yeah, it's not even water, it's just like a river of cream soda. That's what this is. Like red cream soda. We have a pretty standard temperature on this planet, though. 60 degrees Fahrenheit? Pretty good. Got some, okay, well this is definitely like dirt right here. All these trees are white though, for some reason. They look like they're covered in snow, which is definitely weird. Also, another little worm creature that's just swimming through the air. This planet is called Ulhoen 2. Yeah, much like No Man's Sky, the names of all the planets are randomly generated as well. This kind of looks almost like the planet that we started on. Oh god, what is this? Oh, hello. You kind of look like you're just sliding across the ground. It almost looks like a turtle. A gray turtle? Another sentinel. Yeah, the sentinel drones always look the exact same, because, I mean, they also look the exact same in No Man's Sky. How many times have I said No Man's Sky in this video, by the way? Has anyone been keeping count? Yeah, I mean, there's not really that much more to say about this game other than that. I mean, yeah, most of this game just involves exploring the procedurally generated planets, but I'm still kind of amazed that something like this was actually pulled off in the Pico 8 engine of all things, especially the procedural generation here. I'm definitely impressed by what's on display here, even if it does get kind of repetitive after a while. But I mean, so does No Man's Sky, if we're being completely real here for a minute. I mean, No Man's Sky is also a fairly repetitive game too. You're just hopping around from planet to planet trying to gather resources and ultimately get to the center of the galaxy, but I mean, while you're making that journey over there, there's not a great deal of things that you're actually doing. But that's not really the reason I play No Man's Sky anyway. Like, I typically play No Man's Sky just because I want to see what sort of insane planets I will actually encounter. Like, I get a lot more enjoyment out of just exploring the weird environments that all of these planets contain, as opposed to, I guess, trying to play the game normally. Like, I'm basically a tourist. I'm just going around and investigating all of these planets, trying to scan all of them for various flora and fauna and what have you, trying to scan all of the different minerals as well, because that's also something you can do in No Man's Sky, if you want to just scan all of the rocks, if that's your thing, if that's your jam. And I think that's part of why I like No Man's Sky so much. It's very relaxing to just kind of go into creative mode and just sort of walk around all the different planets that you come across. Because it's one of those things where, if you just take the time to look, you will find some very weird and wonderful things in No Man's Sky. Because not only are there so many different planet types, but the fact that there's like 18 quintillion planets in total, like, you never know what you're gonna stumble across next. And that's part of what makes the game so exciting, at least to me personally. I know that a lot of people don't really like No Man's Sky because of its repetitive and almost grindy nature, but I'm just mostly there to sightsee. Like, that's all I'm really there to do. I enjoy sightseeing a lot more than actually playing the game correctly. Diode 2, 181 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the hottest planet that we've come across so far. Green birds, more floating worm creatures. Yeah, but see, this is what I was talking about earlier. You see how it's actually using the exact same sprites, but it's just coloring them differently to try and make them look like they're different specimens, I guess? I don't know what in the world this thing is. Kind of has like a gigantic mouth in the center. I don't even know what that is. Kind of weird slug creature that kind of looks like it has a flower growing out of its ass. I don't know, that's what it looks like to me. Also, gray water. Or in other words, it's basically sludge. Yeah, got giant puddles of sludge here. Giant puddles of sludge water. With bright green grass. And bright magenta grass too, apparently. With some nice, pink boreal forest here. And this giant mountain that for whatever reason I can just walk across like it's not even there. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about this. If you want to delete your save, you can do that. And you can also just reset the card entirely. This will erase all of your progress though, just so you know. Okay, like just a little word of warning right there, but I don't really know what else to talk about in regards to this game, guys. I mean, that's about it. That's Low Mem Sky. It's literally just you going around and exploring some planets, just kind of sightseeing, basically. Kind of like what you're normally doing in No Man's Sky. And that's about all there is to it. It's still an interesting little Demake though, and I also really like the music as well. I don't remember who produced the music for this, but I think their name does appear on the main menu, if I'm not mistaken. So before we move on to the next game here, because I think I'm pretty much done playing Low Mem Sky now, I want to show you guys a weird little bug that I discovered off screen. So it turns out that there is a very limited amount of money that you can possess in this game. Normally, when you're selling items in the market, when you are docked at the space station, you will receive money for those items. But I found out that if the amount of money you currently have exceeds 32,768, the game doesn't really handle that very well. There seems to be some sort of weird integer overflow glitch when it comes to the in-game currency. For instance, I'm gonna demonstrate this right here. So, I have $32,325, and I'm gonna try and sell some war upsells. Also, this is another thing I want to point out. You just have normal money in this game. You don't have, like, units that you normally have in No Man's Sky, nor do you have nanites or quicksilver. Like, none of those other units of currency you have in this game. You just have normal money. But either way, let's sell some more upsells. And there you go, I was only able to sell one of them, and the counter actually rolled over, and now I have negative $32,000, which basically means I'm in debt now. Basically, if you hoard too much money in this game, you will automatically be put into debt. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be some sort of, like, deep metaphor pertaining to, hoarding your wealth, as it were. Well, I mean, it obviously isn't. It's literally just a random bug that seems to occur whenever you have too much money. It seems like some sort of integer overflow bug that, for whatever reason, hasn't been fixed. But it's kind of interesting to think about. I'm not even sure. You can still sell the items to try try and get yourself out of debt. But at this point, due to the fact that you have a negative amount of money, you can no longer buy anything in the market. So the only way that you can basically get all your money back is by obtaining items on the planet and then selling them to try to get yourself out of debt so you can actually buy stuff again. In my opinion, it's not really worth it. If you do end up encountering this bug, I would suggest deleting your save and just restarting from the beginning, because honestly, that takes way too much time to try and, accumulate $31,000 from selling items. Yeah, due to some random bug in the game. But that was just some silly little thing I wanted to show you guys before I switched over to the next game. Yeah, basically, the game does not really like it when you're hoarding all of your money, so I guess try not to sell items too often, otherwise the game will just freak out and plunge you into debt automatically. I don't know, it's just some really funny bug that I wanted to show you guys, but that's all I have to say about Low Mem Sky. It's a really neat little demake of No Man's Sky in the Pico 8 engine, I guess trying to simulate what an 8-bit version of No Man's Sky would look like. It's pretty cool, but there really isn't a lot to say about it. It's basically just kind of wandering around aimlessly, picking up some items and selling them, jumping to different star systems. That's about all there is to it, though. I mean, there probably is some sort of ending that you can achieve for getting to the galactic core, but that's just gonna take way too long, and I don't have the time or the patience for that. So, we're just gonna move on to the next game now. If you want to download this game, though, the link is in the description, and it's only available on itch right now, and it's also a free game. Okay, well, I guess one last thing that I could show off before I really get started on the next game. Pools of milk. Yeah, sure. And you got ground right here that kind of looks like it's covered in chocolate. Is this like a Neapolitan planet? You got chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla here? By far the most delicious planet that we've come across. But anyway, yeah, we're just gonna reset our cart here. That's it. That's Low Mem Sky. That's the game. There's nothing more to say about it. So, let's move on. Right, so for this next game, I'm actually going to mute my microphone for the first couple of minutes of it, because there's a bit of dialogue that plays at the beginning of the game, and I want you guys to actually listen to the dialogue, because, well, it's something else entirely. I'm gonna load the game up right now, and I'm just gonna let you listen to it. Take a look.
The year is 1995, and the United Conglomerates are abuzz with excitement at the imminent release of Microsoft's game-changing operating system, Windows 95. As Seattle Junior's preeminent kid hacker, you're one of the first to get your hands on the shiny new CD-ROM disc. Mere seconds after hearing the Microsoft sound for the first time, your video phone buzzes with a priority call from the first executive himself. Infomancers working for the foremost Teratsu have stolen vital information about the United Conglomerate's defense network. In order to smuggle the data out of the country, they placed it in the code of Windows 95 and hid it somewhere no one would ever look: the 3D Maze Screensaver. Once Windows 95 is widely released, they'll simply run the screensaver and retrieve the data. The first executive orders you to enter cyberspace and find the hidden data packet before the Infomancers.
This is the first executive! The United Conglomerates thanks you for accepting this mission! I'm here with Central Operations! We'll monitor your progress and advise you!
Okay, so this is real simple. Just wander around the maze and look for the stolen files. You can activate attack mode by pressing Q. I don't know, you might like it.
Gregory's right! Attack mode is great! It says here, you can use it to toggle sections of the maze without affecting its structure by pressing the left mouse button. Actually, that sounds pretty boring, but who knows? Godspeed, kiddo!
Yeah, so, welcome to a game called Screensaver Subterfuge.
Cyberspace has never looked so three-dimensional. The geniuses at Microsoft have done it again.
Mazes are stupid.
Okay, as I was saying, welcome to a game called Screensaver Subterfuge. So, if you're wondering what the hell the last 3 minutes were all about, well, this is another game that I found on itch.io. I think it was also made for a game jam, if I remember correctly, but I don't actually remember if it was or not. I think this was made for a game jam called, like, Jam 2017, and I think the whole premise of that game jam was to create a game that was, well, procedurally generated. I don't know, I guess if there is a theme here for this double feature, it would be procedural generation. But other than that, there was basically no theme, because I didn't, I basically picked these two games out of complete randomness. This was also actually another game that I discovered on itch a long time ago, but I just never decided to play. Again, your guess is as good as mine as to why I never bothered playing it up until this point. So the premise of this game is that you are a kid hacker in the year 1995, and Microsoft have just released the Windows 95 operating system. And there's this organization, or maybe this other country, I have no idea, but they are trying to steal vital information about the defense system of the so-called United Conglomerates, or in other words, the United States. And basically, they're planning to steal this data by somehow hijacking the 3D Maze screensaver that comes pre-installed on Windows 95. Or I guess they're hiding some sort of malware inside the 3D Maze screensaver, so that once it's finally run, they will begin stealing information about the United Conglomerate's defense system, or something along the lines of that, something insane and nonsensical like that. And you've been hired by these people to go into the 3D Maze screensaver and try to retrieve that data before it gets stolen. And I believe that pretty much sums up this game's plot, so how exactly does it play? Well, you use the WASD keys to move around, arrow keys work as well, and you can press the spacebar to jump, but as you can see, you don't jump all that high. And there isn't really any point to jumping in this game anyway, because there's literally no ledges that you have to jump on, or across for that matter. So let's actually start walking around here for a little bit. So you'll see that this game is stylized after the classic 3D Maze screensaver that first got introduced in Windows 95. And if I'm not mistaken, I think most of these textures are ripped directly from the 3D Maze screensaver, because you have like the classic OpenGL, like little splash screen right here, and you also have this little one-dimensional sprite of the OpenGL logo as well. You also have these little rats that are navigating the maze too. I think those sprites are also ripped directly from the 3D Maze screensaver. You have all the same textures as well, like you have the wooden floor, the brick walls, the concrete ceiling. Basically everything in this game was ripped from 3D Maze. And much like the 3D Maze screensaver, this game does generate a random maze every time you play it. So there's only 3 levels in total that we have to get through here, and once we get through those 3 levels, then that's just it. That's the end of the game. I'm pretty sure this game was mostly designed as a parody of the 3D Maze screensaver, and I think it especially becomes obvious once you actually boot up the game and you listen to the absolutely stellar voice acting that this game contains. Yeah, it's basically like it's a parody for absolute sure. It's satirical. I'm guessing it's probably meant to be a parody of like hacker culture, or maybe like hacker movies of some sort. So the only real thing that you're doing here is just navigating the maze, and much like the screensaver that this game is based off of, you are trying to find the smiley face at the end of the maze, because that will cause the next level to load. Basically, the maze will disappear entirely, it'll just like melt away, and then the next level will load in. And for those of you who grew up with later versions of the 3D Maze screensaver, like I did, well, you're in for a little surprise later on. You're in for a right old treat, as it were. So one of the people that was giving us instructions earlier told us that we can activate attack mode by pressing the Q key, so let's actually go and do that right now. Yeah, and all of a sudden the music changes and also the palette color changes too. Mission advisory. File signature for non-standard run length encoded bitmaps using the 3D Maze screensaver is that number. That's not interesting in the slightest. So basically what this attack mode is that you can activate it with the Q key, and if you left click, you can fire this little bullet right here that causes the texture on parts of the maze to change. And of course, as they mentioned before, this does not actually affect the layout of the maze itself. What it does allow you to do is effectively look through walls. So in other words, if you are stuck in the maze and completely unable to find your way around, well, that's pretty much what attack mode is useful for. It effectively allows you to see through walls, so that way you can see if the smiley face is on the other side. And it's also a good way to keep track of where you've already been inside of the maze, just in case you're running around in circles and you have no idea where you actually are. If you place these little markers down, then you'll already know that you've been here before. So that way you have no reason to ever come down there ever again. And you can spam this attack as much as you want, because I think you have an unlimited amount of bullets, if I'm not mistaken. So you can just like, yeah, you basically spam recycle bin icons as much as you damn well please. Yeah, why the heck not? You can basically turn the entire maze into, yeah, these really, I mean, admittedly, kind of ugly-looking textures right here. Yeah, you can turn the entire maze into this if you so well please, but I don't think I'm gonna mess around with this for too much. You also have random text that appears whenever you activate attack mode. Current data suggests that attack mode may be of extremely limited utility. Oh, you don't say. The pinnacle of home computing, fully cyberspace compatible, the Northumberland 80, available now in beige and dull beige. Stellar color choice, results a maze stability assessment. Consistent Euclidean environment, stable internal physics, probability of Necklerson scenario. I have no idea what that even means. Now they're just like reciting quantum physics on me here. Announcing Microsoft 4D Movie Maker. Let your child's creativity run wild in a 4-dimensional manifold, fully consistent with the principles of special relativity. Yeah, so it gives you like little quips that you can read whenever you enable attack mode right here. I'm not even reading them at all because frankly I don't really care about them. Oh, there's a smiley face right there, but what does this one say? United Conglomerates urge consumers to report any and all encounters with sentient, that word, that have assumed an approximation of human form. Siphonophores. Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know. Anyone who's better at grammar than I am, let me know in the comments. Or who's a lot, like, better at utilizing the English language, because I sure as hell am not. Let's hit this smiley face.
The files must be in another maze! Truly insidious! I don't know about you two, but I think Windows 95 is living up to the hype. Where do you want to go today, Gregory?
I don't know, I just want to stay home and eat Dorito.
I'm worried about you, Gregory.
I'm not so well.
Well, F's to Gregory. Yeah, so we're in the second maze right here, so like I said, all of these levels are going to be randomly generated every time you play the game. There's a lot of different rats here now, as well. They're just, yeah, roaming all over the place. Yeah, much like in 3D Maze, these rats don't hurt you. No, they're just completely, they're not static because they still move around.
Maze rodents? Probably a clumsy attempt at intimidation. Don't let them rattle you, kiddo. That was a deliberate pun. Trying to lighten the mood.
Well, you just made the whole mood even more toxic now, so I hope you're happy. Because now I possess the genuine urge to murder someone after hearing that. But yeah, as I was saying before, I already found the smiley face, by the way. But yeah, these rats don't hurt you just like in 3D Maze. They do absolutely nothing. What does kind of disappoint me about this game, though, is that they didn't implement the little rocks that you can come across in 3D Maze. You know, if you guys are familiar with the 3D Maze screensaver, you know how there were these, like, little rocks that you could touch, and it would flip the entire maze upside down? That doesn't exist in this game. No, instead you have these little, like, OpenGL logos that are just floating out here. That kinda sucks, man. And yes, for the record, I am old enough to remember the 3D Maze screensaver because, I think my parents had, an old Windows 2000 computer, which I think 3D Maze was also featured in Windows 2000, and I remember just kinda watching the maze play itself, because I mean, the maze was computer controlled. You couldn't actually, like, control the maze on your own using the keyboard or anything. It was, like, basically an AI that was just navigating the maze on its own. But that was definitely one of my favorite screensavers from Windows 2000, though. And remember when I said that there's a surprise in store for people who grew up with the later versions of 3D Maze, like I did? Well, prepare for some extreme nostalgia overload.
Stupid hamsters.
Good lord, it's hideous. Looks like the Karatsu are trying to scare you off. The files must be close.
That's right! You got the psychedelic textures from the later versions of 3D Maze that were featured in the Windows 2000 version. I think the only textures that I ever used in the 3D Maze screensaver were actually these, like, trippy psychedelic textures right here. Like, these are all basically fractals, as you can see.
I've dabbled in cyberspace hacking myself, you know. I've been training with a cutting-edge interface device, the Microsoft EasyBall. I chose my own cursor by playing the Pointerland game.
I literally do not give a crap. God, let me finish talking, please. Just interrupting me all the freaking time. So damn rude. But yeah, I always used to love looking at these fractal textures right here. Because that's what they are. They are literally fractals if you look at them. If you look at them closely. I think the only textures that I ever had enabled in the 3D Maze screensaver were these crazy fractal textures with all the different shifting colors. This kind of is an epileptic's worst nightmare, if I may be completely honest, but I don't know, there was just something so mesmerizing about looking at these psychedelic fractal textures. And if I remember correctly, I think the later versions of the 3D Maze screensaver allowed you to import your own textures. If I remember correctly. I don't know. Was that a feature in the later 3D Maze versions? Let me know, guys, because I don't fully remember myself. God, that rat kind of scared me, actually. It's been a long time since I messed around with the 3D Maze screensaver. I don't remember if I even, like, reinstalled it on my laptop whenever I had that complete hard drive crash. Because I know that there was at least one person. Oh, there's the briefcase, by the way. Yeah, but there was someone who created an updated version of 3D Maze that was compatible with later Windows operating systems like Windows 7 and 8, and I think Windows 10 as well. I have to go and try and find that again so I can mess around with the 3D Maze screensaver again, but for now, let's get this briefcase and retrieve the files.
Wait, that wasn't a smiley! It was some kind of virtual briefcase containing the stolen data files! Gregory, did you make a note of its exact location in the code?
Yeah, it was in one of these mazes.
Great! I'll get the Gates Multimine to remove it before Windows 95 is released outside the United Conglomerates! Thanks for your help, kiddo! Now we can prevent the foremost Karatsu from transforming our dystopian society into a slightly different type of dystopian society. Wouldn't that be horrible, Gregory?
I don't care about society.
Well, bye!
Well, joke's on you, because we're living in the year 2020 right now, and we're already living in what is basically a dystopian society. Okay, so, yeah, at the end of the game, it turns out that, yeah, you were just living in virtual reality, and by the way, that is actually the EasyBall right there. Yeah, so that is the Northumberland 80. Yeah, we were basically in VR this whole time, and the VR system crashed because it got the blue screen, as you can see. So, we can look around this apartment right here. Got a nice looking apartment that we got going on. We can look at some memes on the wall. Frasier 2.0, active. I'm not entirely sure what that's a reference to. Nature's nice. The Encarta 95 companion. Universal barriers, cosmetic privacy curtain, not for use as a riot management device. We go outside. Yeah, there's, flying cars all over the place for some reason. Whoops, the fall of democracy in the West. A little too real right now. Just a little bit too real. Yeah, we can't jump off this balcony, unfortunately. Yeah, that's about it for the game, guys. There's nothing else we can do here. We actually cannot leave this apartment. Eventually, the screen will just fade out on its own, and then the game itself will close. Yeah, it just closes automatically, and that's it. That's Screensaver Subterfuge. But I'm not just gonna end the video on a blank screen right here, so I think I am actually just gonna load the game back up and try to end the video inside the game. I also just want to demonstrate very quickly that if you left-click on this opening cutscene right here, you can change the appearance of the background. Not really useful for anything, but I mean, if you're getting upset with looking at the exact same background over and over, then you can change it. Also, you can skip that opening cutscene by simply pressing the escape key, if you just want to get started with the game right away. This would also be a good way of demonstrating the procedural generation in this game, because you'll notice that we are actually in a different maze layout right now, because this start button is a lot closer to this wall now. Yeah, so like I said, generates a new maze every single time. But you know what? I do actually want to try and get those fractal textures back up on the walls right here. So you know what? I'll actually meet you back over there, and then we're gonna end this video, because that's basically it for this double feature. We're done, guys. There we go, back in trippy fractal land, where I finally feel safe again. Where I can truly bask in my ultimately meaningless nostalgia, but anyway. Yeah, we're gonna end the video here now, guys, so that's Low Mem Sky and Screensaver Subterfuge. I guess in some way there was kind of a theme for this video, if the theme was like procedural generation. But other than that, these games were chosen randomly. Like, I didn't choose these games with any sort of theme in mind. I only started realizing, like, when I started playing Screensaver Subterfuge, that there was actually kind of a theme that I was beginning to notice in this video. But other than that, these games were supposed to be random, and you know what? I'm still gonna state that this was in fact a random double feature video today with no theme. So, make of that what you will. But anyway, if you guys want to go and download all of these games, the link is in the description. Or the links are in the description, I should say. Both of these games are completely free. If not slightly old, but still free, so I mean... Yeah, that about does it. If I had to choose a favorite game that I covered in this video today, it would probably be Screensaver Subterfuge, just because I have a lot more nostalgia for, like, the old 3D Maze Screensaver, and I think a lot of people have nostalgia for that old Screensaver, because that was like one of Microsoft's most popular screensavers at one point, and still kind of is even today. I don't know, it seems to be like one of the very few screensavers from like Windows 95, 98, 2000, like that era of computing specifically, that a lot of people seem to have pretty fond memories of. Myself included, because, like I said, I grew up with the later versions of 3D Maze, because I think the original release of 3D Maze did not have these trippy fractal textures that you can apply to the walls. That was only introduced in a later update to the screensaver. The Windows 95 version did not have these psychedelic fractal walls, but the Windows 2000 version definitely did. Man, this is just really making me miss the old 3D Maze screensaver. Back at a time when things were so much simpler. I really have to go and re-download that screensaver at some point. I'm pretty sure someone would have made a Windows 10 version of it by this point, or like, made it compatible with Windows 10. Anyway, I'm just starting to ramble at this point, guys, so that's where I'm gonna leave the video. Links in the description if you want to play Low Mem Sky or Screensaver Subterfuge. And, as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video I make. Later!